Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Connor LaRock, and today we're going to be doing a heartfelt interview today with Dylan and Carolyn. We want to talk today about their son. We're going to get into their story, their background, and just a little bit of context on behalf of the NOFCC. They're sponsoring this interview today. I want to start off. Can you just give us a little bit of context and tell us your story about your son, Malcom, and what happened, and we'll go into it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So on December 20th, Malcom got admitted into the North Bay Hospital. We had ran a few tests. We got an MRI and we saw that he had a tumor just in his occipital bone. In North Bay, we didn't really know what was going on, so they had sent us to CHEO. On Christmas Day, we got airlifted to CHEO. And when we got to CHEO, Boxing Day, they ran a few more tests, and we found out that he had leukemia. There's two types of leukemia. He happened to have infant AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia. So the protocol for that is the patient stays in the hospital for 6 months. We do 4 or 5 rounds of chemo, and we are inpatients the whole time, so Malcom does not leave the hospital. So being from North Bay, we were in Ottawa, and so Dylan and Kaylin had to go back and forth from North Bay to Ottawa because Dylan still had to work, Kaylin still had to go to daycare, so we were just doing the back and forth thing. And I stayed down there with Malcom the whole time. So NOFCC would send us bi-weekly inpatient funding. They would send us gas cards and calling cards so that Dylan and Kaylin could come and visit as often as needed.
100%. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me about when you had found out, when you had gotten diagnosed? Can you talk to me about that moment and what that meant? Because for any parents or anybody going out there, that must have been one of the hardest things that you'd have to go through.
Yeah, I feel like for us, I've never heard of a child getting cancer. And so I knew that something was going on with Malcom. That's why we initially got admitted into the hospital. But I guess to hear that your son has cancer, was just so surreal. It was almost like an out-of-body experience. The doctors are saying, okay, so he has cancer, it's leukemia, this is the procedure, and you're just like, okay, wait, what? Like, you said he has cancer? Like, no. Like, he hasn't done anything in his life to deserve that or to get it, or no one deserves it, but just to get it. Children aren't supposed to go through that.
100%. Talk about how the NOFCC was able to help you through those situations, and then obviously there's complications, and you have COVID-19 and everything that kind of compounds everything. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Everything was going okay before COVID. We were staying at the Ronald McDonald House. Dylan and our daughter were going back and forth every weekend. So they would come down on Thursday, go back on Sunday night, and we were doing that. And so we had the funding for the Ronald McDonald House from NOFCC, and then gas cards and calling cards. But COVID-19 hit, and the Ronald McDonald House had shut down. And so they weren't allowing anyone who hadn't been there during the lockdown to come. So that meant that Dylan couldn't come down unless he left our daughter in North Bay, which that wasn't an option. So Dylan couldn't see Malcom for 2 months, and our kids couldn't see each other for 3 months because our daughter was not allowed to go into the hospital. And if I had gone back to North Bay to visit my daughter, then I would not have been allowed to go back to the Ronald McDonald House. And I understand why those protocols are in place, but because of that, Dylan lost time with Malcom, I lost time with our daughter, and the kids lost 3 months of time together. So we had reached out to NOFCC and they were already helping us. So we told them our story, and they knew everything that was going on with us. And so they helped us with emergency funding to get an Airbnb. So we had moved into the Airbnb. We were all together. Malcom was still in the hospital, and we were supposed to be going home. Malcom was, in remission. He did his last chemo round, and we were just waiting for his final LP, lumbar puncture, and his final bone marrow to come back. So we already told them, like, we're going home. We don't need the Airbnb after this time. And so after the final LP and bone marrow, they had still found cancer in Malcom's LPs. So we knew he had relapsed, and then so we were thinking we were going to go to a transplant in Toronto, and we still had the Airbnb. We were still all still together. So Dylan and I were switching back and forth. I would be at the hospital, and then he would switch and go to the hospital, and it was nice just having our daughter there.
I can only imagine how difficult that was. Did you, when they broke it to you again that he went into remission, what were some of the things? Did they say he was terminal at the time? Can you walk us through how you guys stuck together as a family? Because one thing that you have COVID-19 where you have to be spaced apart, and they're keeping you apart. Like, what were some of the things you guys did in that time to try to keep together and keep the hope, if you don't mind me asking?
When they first told us, I was like, okay, well, he was in remission once, no big deal. We're gonna do this again. I was pretty positive. I don't think I realized that a relapse in AML was so significant. And we were on the phone with transplant in Toronto right away, and we're like, okay, like, let's find a donor. We're gonna do the transplant, no big deal. And so he was going to start a 5th round of chemo, and so the doctors had decided, because we had the Airbnb, that they were going to send Malcom to the Airbnb with us for a weekend. And if we were at the Ronald McDonald House, they wouldn't have let us do that. But because we had the Airbnb and it was just the 4 of us, that was Malcom's first night away from the hospital since December 20th, because NOFCC had got us the Airbnb. So, we were just kind of like, okay, like, this is what it's going to be like after, we get home. And Malcom was kind of acting a little strange. He was really lethargic. He was throwing up a little bit. And so Dylan and I had decided that when we bring him back to the hospital, that we were going to ask for a head CT. So we had done a head CT, and they found a mandarin-sized tumor. It's a scleroma, which is a buildup of myeloid cells in the dura, which is the lining between the brain and the skull.
How was Malcom through the whole process of it? When was he still active, like, a little bit? Because I can only imagine even as a parent having to go through that. Like, was he showing signs like he was okay at points, or was he strong through it, or was it?
99% of the time he was fine.
That's
Through chemo, through nausea, pokes, surgeries, he didn't care.
Right.
He's just a kid. A lot of people think that kids with cancer are just stuck to a hospital bed, and he was more social than probably me.
Yeah. They had little toy cars, and you push him around the hallways, and he would get so upset if he had a runny nose and we had to be isolated to the room, because he just wanted to be out saying hi to his friends and waving at everyone. He was very social, and like Dylan said, they'd come in and give him a little poke, and then as soon as they let go of him, he was smiling, and he was over it. He's like, okay.
How were your other children during this time? Like, how, as a parent, how did you break it to them or let them know? Like, because that again is compounding in itself.
Yeah, I think it. I was pregnant at the time,
right.
So we just had our 4-year-old. It was hard. We kept saying Malcom is sick, and then we had realized that we needed to start saying that he had cancer, because we didn't want it to be like a fear, like that if we're like, oh, you're sick, like you have a cold or something, that she would be afraid of it. So we were very open with her. We made sure she knew that Malcom was sick, and that's why he's in the hospital. He has cancer. We're getting him better. And I think it was difficult, like when we found out that there was nothing more we could do for him, because we're telling her, that you don't have long with him, but it's hard because we don't have the answers that she was looking for or anything like that. So
how do you emotionally, like, and just for people out there that we all go through really hard times with this is something, you know, very difficult. How do you try to overcome that or stay grateful in that moment to say that you're blessed to have the time with Malcom you did? Like, what would your advice be to parents or anybody going through that kind of experience?
Compartmentalize,
right?
Little bits at a time. You know, enjoy 10 minutes of your day. Keep it moving. There's a lot of time to worry. There's a lot of time to regret, but there's always the hope in the back of your head, and that never really wavered with us. You know, even up into the last couple of days, you always hope something might go right. But you know, you just keep moving through.
You keep pushing through.
Dylan was, you know, very much that like calm part of me where, you know, I was panicking. I'm like, okay, we got to do everything we can in the next, like, who knows how long we have. So I would kind of go through my panic stages, but Dylan was very like, okay, we're here. You're thinking too far, like kind of pulling me back. So it was kind of nice to have that, or else I don't think I would have handled it very well.
How was it with the doctors too? Because I know sometimes when people put kind of a label where it's like, okay, you only have 2 days or 2 months. I know how difficult that almost takes the human spirit out of you. How were the doctors through the process?
They were amazing. I have nothing bad to say about how they handled things or, them. I remember every time the doctors came in to talk to us, you know, we were there since December, so it was very like casual conversations telling us what our plan was that day. And so when they came in on the Friday, the June 26th, I remember they came in with a social worker and a case manager. And I was like, okay, this is not good news. You know, bringing in more than just the doctor, that it's never good. And so they said that, you know, Malcolm's cancer was too aggressive and there was nothing more they could do. And I just remember like, okay, but like, what can we do? And, you know, they handled us very well. They answered every single question we had. Every time, you know, we'd go and say, okay, what about this? You know, they were very, very good about it.
Was there anything that really eased the process, if, you know, for other parents that might be experiencing this? Was there anything, because I mean, I can't even imagine, to be honest, what you went through. Was there anything that really helped, like, through the process to kind of, again, like you said, compartmentalize and ease with the grief and everything you were going through?
I think the fact that we were all together. You know, Chio had allowed our daughter to sleep at the hospital with us the last 2 nights we had him. And then, like, they were pretty good about having family come in because no one was allowed in since February, or I think it was like March 11th or 12th. And then, so just allowing everyone to come in, it was amazing. But I don't know, I have no advice because everything we've been through, I still don't know what I would say to someone going through the exact same thing as us. It's
terrible experience. Yeah, there's nothing else to say from that. Can you talk about, you know, some of the things? So I'm assuming at the time with work, you'd have to leave work because you're dealing with that. You can't even think about going to work, obviously, because that's on your mind. How were you able to kind of juggle that working with the NOFCC? Like, did they really help with that to kind of help with some funding and things like that?
Yeah.
Extra resources?
So I was on maternity leave, but...
Yeah, I ended up taking the full 7 months off work, and you don't really know about these grants and these programs that are there to help you until you're in these unfortunate situations, and that's definitely something you see after we go through something like we have, and why it's so important that we, you know, get the story out as much as we can, because things like monthly bills, you know, we had a GoFundMe set up, but at the end of the day, there's all these programs that when you get to the hospital, your social worker already has it set up. Right, and so it took all of a week to, you know, get things lined up, bills paid, and just to make sure that we can worry about Malcom at the time that he needed us, and we're, you know, our head's not somewhere else.
100%. Like, I can't even imagine going through that where you have to worry about your own bills, and then on top of it, that situation, and then the travel too. Like, how hard was that? Like, having to travel and then be apart.
Yeah, you know, you get used to the drive to Ottawa, that's for sure. But yeah, the travel's a small thing during all that, right? We don't really think about that. I make sure Kaylin's happy in the back seat and we hit the road.
100%.
Even when you're at home, your mind's in the hospital room. So, you don't really think about it at the time until after. And then, afterwards I added it all up. How much would all that gas cost? How much would all, And so that's where you really appreciate where a lot of these agencies and funding comes in.
What were some of the things that Malcolm left you with that you took home and something that, was warm to your heart? What were some of the things that you took throughout his experience?
I think his resilience, just the fact that he was so forgiving, and he lived in a hospital for, almost 7 months, and he made every day count. He was, like Dylan said, more social than us. Like, he had his friends. He just lived and loved every day. He was laughing. He was just had amazing spirits, and so I feel like that's definitely something that everyone can learn from, is just, whatever you're going through, you can make the best out of it, and that's exactly what he did, and he enjoyed every day.
How do you face that grief of, again, a young baby like that, like, doesn't deserve to have to go through an experience, and still, like you said, he stayed resilient and positive. How do you battle through that grief? Like, what are some of the things that you remember him, and does it help you kind of bring you back up? Because just for some of the families that may be experiencing this, I'm just wondering, just to help them as well, even though I know it's probably so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Move at your own pace. Grieve what you need to at the time. Don't force it. Everyone's going to have their own way to grieve. It's important to reach out when you need to. It's important to remember when you want to. And, just move at your own pace, but enjoy your time with everyone down to the second.
How were your kids throughout all of this, through him passing her? Are they doing okay now? Or? I've seen the little baby here, just so everyone knows the baby's here too.
Yeah, she's 2 months old, but yeah, she's 2 months old, and so she doesn't. We'll tell her about Malcolm as she gets older. But our 4-year-old, even her resilience is just incredible. She was there with us when Malcolm got diagnosed, and then through his treatment, and then just her being in the hospital to visit him, and then when we had him at the Airbnb. She was in the room when he passed away. She laid with him, after, came to the funeral, was at the wake. Like, just, she's seen so much in her short little life, in her little world. And so I think kids are resilient, and just her, she'll be like, oh, I miss Malcolm. But then she's like, I'm happy because, he's doesn't have cancer anymore. And just hearing those things, it's hard, but then you have to realize that, like, adults, when we grieve, we cry, or we show other things, where she will say she's sad, she misses Malcolm, and then she carries on with her day, and so she's okay, I think.
She's hanging in there.
She misses Malcolm a lot.
For sure.
But yeah.
Do you believe in a way, and I know this is a little bit out there in a sense, but some people turn to, like as if he's a spirit. Do you believe he's here with you every day? Does that help you in the day? Like, I lost my best friend in a car accident, and I always believe he's on my shoulder every day. Like, he guides me as a spirit kind of thing. Like, I feel his presence, and he lives on through our memories. Do you find that? Does that sometimes give you a sense of hope and positivity from it?
I think I struggle with that a lot. Like, I was like, I'm not seeing any signs from Malcolm. I'm not having dreams about him, and I was almost like panicking. Like, every time I saw a butterfly, I'm like, okay, that's Malcolm. But then I'm like, it didn't feel right to me. So I was struggling with that a lot. But I think I've kind of like been more open, and like been talking, like, okay, if you want to give me a sign, I'm ready now. Because before, I don't think I was ready. And if I had a dream about Malcolm, like Dylan and I had talked about this, and I don't think I would have wanted to wake up from that dream if I had a dream about him. But I'm more accepting now, and so if I did have a dream about him, I would, be okay with that, where before I really struggled with that.
No, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
For any of the parents out there, like, I know, like you'd said in the beginning, Dylan, that there's sometimes this stigma in a sense with kids with cancer. Like you said, Malcolm was positive and resilient throughout the process. Like, is there anything you would tell to those parents out there that their kid just got diagnosed? Like, what would you say to those parents or people? Because again, it's something incomprehensible in so many ways, if you don't mind asking.
Stay positive. I mean, realistically, you can be as sad as you want about it, and it is hard, but staying positive is probably the most important thing. Putting that energy out there, making sure that, keeping care of yourself as well as your child, and just keep moving.
100%. What are some of the things that you've done maybe to keep moving, to keep positivity? Do you turn to a sport or a hobby? Is there anything?
I watch hockey religiously, so luckily in the hospital they had that playing. But keep yourself busy with a hobby if you can. Podcasts I got into with the long drives and all that, and there's all sorts of things to keep you distracted and on the sides, and pick something up that fills your time and keeps you happy. That's
really good advice too. I really appreciate that. So if a parent's out there, would you recommend right away that reach out to the NOFCC if that experience or a resource or foundation like that, you would say to go see those people? Like where do we look to, like if in this situation? Because again, people we don't talk about a lot of this stuff. Where would you turn like when something happens like this?
Yeah, so the hospital CHEO, they have interlink nurses, and they interlink charities to us patients. So you're so numb the first, I don't know, I feel like I was numb the whole time, but right away you have no idea what's going on. The interlink nurses connect right away with NOFCC. They bring the papers to you, and they do a lot of the work for you. So I personally have never heard of certain fundraisers or charities, and so that's why I think it's important that people know where to donate their money and whatnot. And
through this process, it give you a sense of hope that there is good people. Like you see a lot of stuff online nowadays where it's a lot of drama, a lot of negativity, but did this provide you some hope that there really is some great people out in our world?
Absolutely. All the kindness that we've received, and everything that we've been through, everyone's shown us so much kindness, and it's
and I want to ask, it's something of this, like how are you guys doing now? Like at the end of this, I know we're talking, like how are you two doing through all this, through this experience that a lot of people won't go through in their life? Like how are you and Dylan together? How is everything? How's your life now?
I feel like it's changed us forever. We're forever changed. It's definitely made me a stronger person. It's kind of made me realize what's important in life and what's really not that important. I think it's brought us closer.
Some you never think you're going to go through, but afterwards, make sure you seek the right kind of support, the right kind of channel, stuff like that. And we had all those options basically handed to us, right after he had passed, and everyone made sure that, we were good. But don't hesitate to reach out for those things too. Sometimes you might want to close up and ignore that kind of support and help, but very important to, try to reach out for it when it's there.
100%. Would you guys be open to ever, talking to other people going through that same situation, maybe in a sense as a way to heal as well and work them through it?
Yeah, absolutely. We love talking about Malcom. He's one of our favorite subjects. We can talk about him, for as long as people want to listen, we'll talk about him. And we're very open with our story and what we've gone through.
Are there any final remarks that you would like to tell to the families and people out there that you want to share from the heart about Malcom or anything of that sort?
Just, try and do everything you can with your kids. I know sometimes it's frustrating, you're stuck at home with them during COVID, but really try and enjoy those moments. Just take a deep breath if you have to, but just be present with your kids and really try and enjoy them.
100%. Anything from you as well, Dylan?
She basically covers it. I mean, every second that's, you don't really know until it's too late. So they can be frustrating sometimes, but they're pretty funny and entertaining. So enjoy your time.
I want to take a moment of silence for Malcom, and I want to say, your courage, it just what you have to go through in a lot of ways. I can't even imagine. Like somebody like your kid that comes from the heart, and it's just if you don't mind, I'd like to do like a moment of silence for Malcolm
Sure.
on this in here. If we just and kind of say, I'm sorry that you guys had to go through that too.
Thank
And
you
your
very
strength.
much.
It's nice to see when you guys walk in. It's very positive too. So
Thank you.
thank you very much, everybody. This is we have Dylan and Caroline here. If you want to know more about their story as well, we're going to share a link with the NOFCC. My name's Connor Rock, and it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to sit down with you guys. And I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart as well, if there's anything that we can ever do in our community, in our network, that we're here for you. And there always is support. And I think something that even through this story that I've taken from it, just from you guys, is that there is people, there is support, we're not alone. And I'm truly sorry that you had to experience that in your life.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.